All societies have substantial numbers of short-term sexual relationships, whether sanctioned or not, so it is necessary to consider these also. Evolutionists interested in human behavior have long considered whether humans are psychologically adapted to commit to long-term relationships, whether monogamous or polygamous, or whether it is in our nature to attempt to have multiple short-term partners. Of course, such claims assume that there is a genetic component to our mating strategies, that is, that mating patterns are adaptations. When considering behavior, just how big an impact evolution has had on our psychological wiring is an area of great debate. In contrast, when considering physiological and anatomical peculiarities, few would disagree that such features are largely genetically determined. And it is recent studies of the reproductive physiology and anatomy of males that have provided some surprising insights into the sexual strategies of both sexes. Differences in the level of sexual dimorphism between various species may provide clues to the mating strategy and to levels of intermale competitiveness of a species. Another way where males may vary between species and which may provide further clues as to differences in sexual behaviors is in the size of their testes. We can make use of the comparative method to see how sexual selection may have acted on primate species differentially. Gorillas, in contrast to their enormous body size, have relatively small testes, whereas chimpanzees have extremely large ones. The reason for this difference becomes clear when we realize that the amount of sperm produced increases with the size of the testes. In chimpanzee society, where sexual dimorphism is quite low, high-ranking males do not monopolize a group of females, but instead attempt to pair off with individual females during their period of estrus. As we have seen, female chimpanzees show a large estrus swelling during this fertile period of their cycle and may mate with a number of males at such time. Such multiple mating behavior in female chimps means that their reproductive tract will often contain sperm from more than one male. This female mating strategy has led the males to engage in sperm competition, so that those able to produce the largest quantities of sperm are most likely to inseminate a female and thereby pass on their genes. Hence, sexual selection has driven chimpanzees' testes to the current enormous size. In contrast to chimpanzees, silverback gorillas that are able to defend a harem from the attentions of other males produce relatively small quantities of sperm, since their sperm will not have to compete with that of other males. This explains why their testes are so small. In males, a large body size relative to females indicates polygyny with multiple mating partners for males, whereas large testes compared to closely related species indicates polygamy with multiple partners for both sexes. The finding of a relationship between testes and body size in relation to mating strategy raises the question: what sort of mating strategy do these measurements suggest in our own species? It turns out that humans are intermediate on both measures. In terms of body size, humans are a little more dimorphic than chimps and decidedly less so than gorillas. In terms of testes size, humans are 4 times larger in volume than gorillas relative to body size, but only a third the size of chimpanzees. By these measures, then, in our ancient past, human males may well have competed for females partly via strength and size, and partly via sperm competition. In order for sperm competition to occur, some human females must have routinely mated with more than one male within a matter of days. This means that we may be able to infer something about the mating strategy of both sexes by studying the anatomical detail of one sex. The relative size of male testes suggests that human females were less promiscuous than chimps, but more promiscuous than gorillas. The finding of a relationship between testes size and human promiscuity is also supported by the finding that a man's sperm count rises quite dramatically when he has been away from his partner for some time. The rationale being that when ancestral males spent some time away from their mates, upon their return they increased their sperm production in order to compete with other males that might have had sex with their partners. Such a male adaptation is difficult to explain without resorting to sperm competition being driven by ancestral females having more than one partner over quite short periods of time. Before feeling let down by the lack of fidelity that this suggests for our female ancestors, we should also bear in mind that it takes 2 to recombine their genes. Both sexes are equally tainted by such findings. As Buss puts it, Ancestral women must have sought casual sex for its benefits, in some contexts, at some times at least. Because if there had been no willing women, men could not have evolved the psychological mechanisms attuned to short term opportunities. The human testes suggest that although all modern human societies recognize and encourage the formation of long term pair bonds of various sorts, our ancestors of both sexes engaged in extramarital activities. Such a finding poses two big questions. Why might short term relationships have been of benefit to each sex? And what do men and women look for in a short term partner? Is it the same as in a long term partner, or something quite different? We need to consider the costs and the benefits of engaging in casual sexual relationships. Clark and Hatfield had attractive male and female students walk around a university campus and ask students of the opposite sex whether they would sleep with them. The responses of men and women could hardly have been more different. While 75% of males agreed to sleep with a woman they had met only minutes before, every one of the females approached declined the offer. Men see an invitation for casual sex with an attractive, unknown woman both as a compliment and an opportunity. Women see it as a threat and an insult. David Buss and Donald Simons hold that this different behavior reflects differing psychological adaptations in men and women with respect to sex. They argue that men have evolved to find casual sex particularly appealing in order to increase their chances of producing extra offspring at little cost. Women, in contrast, they suggest, have evolved to be more coy about casual sex because they have more to lose if they make a poor choice. Cross-culturally, women desire fewer lifetime sexual partners than men. One particular study conducted by Buss and his colleague, David Schmidt, revealed that during a period of 1 year, women would ideally like to have one sexual partner, whereas men would prefer to have around 6. During a period of 3 years, women would like to have 2, whereas men would ideally like to have around 10. Unlike a man, a woman is unlikely to increase the number of offspring she has by increasing the number of partners she has. Moreover, a single woman who engages in short-term sexual relationships runs the risk of desertion, and a married woman who engages in extramarital sex runs the risk both of her husband's wrath and of his desertion. Furthermore, cross-culturally, promiscuous women are regarded as less marriageable than monogamous or chaste ones. By being openly promiscuous, a woman might reduce her chances of gaining a high-quality, long-term partner.